Alright guys, I thought I would take a little time to work on some tab repair. So the donors I have here today is this Dodge body, and as you can see, it's in pretty nice condition. Unfortunately, when you flip it over, as you can see, there's no rear tab, it's completely gone, and the front tab is completely gone. So what I'm probably going to do today is focus on the rear tab first, depending on how well it goes. Let me get this thing out of here. A lot of times I can pop these rear bumpers off. So one of the tools you're going to need is a good X-Acto knife, and I buy the larger X-Acto knife. There's actually a couple sizes that you can get at Walmart. The larger gives you a little better grip, and it's got a little larger blade. So let's start with a good sharp blade. Be careful not to cut yourselves. Alright, it's good and tight. So, like I mentioned, I want to do a tab repair video. I've wanted to do one for a while. Most people don't want to put this information out there because they're afraid people will start repairing them and selling them, and they end up buying a Stomper with a repaired tab. And I'm kind of on the honor system here. I'm hoping that everyone that does this will at least let people know, or at least show photos of the tabs once they're repaired. Nobody wants to buy a repaired Stomper thinking it's 100% original. So to make this simple on my end, I have this donor body here that's not in very good shape. The finish is about wiped out, but it has really nice tabs on it. So that's what I'm going to do today on this video. I'm not going to show you how to make a tab. I'm going to show you how to exchange a tab from one body to another. So typically what I do is I start by removing the old original tab. And again, be careful not to cut yourself or do something stupid. I do it all the time, so I know firsthand. So we want to remove that old tab out of there best we can and just shave it clean. The other piece here I'm going to go ahead and leave, and then I'm going to remove it the exact same way from the other Stomper, and I'm going to be careful, like I said, to get all the way as close to that bed as I can, the inside of the tailgate I mean. So again, be careful, these things slip sometimes when it finally breaks through, and they can hurt you. It's good to have some sort of a cutting mat. I bought some small, I forget what they're called. It's a little clear mat that I bought, and it's more or less for cutting food or something like that in your cabinet or on your countertop to prevent your countertop from getting destroyed. So you may want to pick something like that up. So anyway, I don't know if you can see down in there or not, but I've got the first half of the tab removed from the inside here. Now, as I mentioned before, the best thing to do is to copy the same procedure over to the other side. So we're going to trim out a little extra because this body will be junk when I'm done here. So I'm hoping you can see, if it'll focus down in there on what I'm doing. I'm just rocking it back and forth until it breaks through the plastic. And one more cut on the inside there. Alright, now I gotta go find it. Alright, now we have the tab removed as best we can to the factory stylings. And like I said, there's a bunch of different ways that you can do all of this. So I'm not telling anyone this is the only way to do it. I'm just telling you that this is a clean way to replace a tab on a Stomper. So you just basically, as long as you have a good sharp X-Acto knife, you can clean that area up and make it look pretty good. So as I mentioned, now we want to fit this to the good body. So it's going to go in here, and we know where the original one went. Now, as I mentioned, we have an extra piece here that needs to be removed. So I'm going to work on that for a second. and get rid of some of the excess plastics. And like I said, just take a look at what you have and see where things attach, and more or less we're going to attach them in the same location. So first I'm going to go ahead and remove all the way to there and see how it fits. And it looks like one more cut just about right here. Once that's shaved off, you just want to make sure it's nice and clean and straight as possible. It's always better to take a little bit off and reposition or whatever you need to do before you just completely annihilate it. So far so good. I'm going to take just a little bit more off of this side here. You can always take more off, but you can't put it back on. So once you take too much off, you've ruined this tab, and then you have to find another donor body or something like that. So let me get in here and see. This is hard to do this and get a good visual with the camera because it's a one-man show here, and I'm trying to do the best that I can. But as you can see, this will go back into the same position once I get this shortened where I need it to be. So we're going to give it another little trim here. Let's see here, make sure I'm on the right side. Okay. Go one more small trim. Make it a little more even. Let's try that and see how it looks. We're getting pretty close. I think one more slight trim and that will be fitting in there again. So the purpose of going all the way back to the back of the tab is normally when they're broken, on this one it wasn't, but normally they're broken right here where the chassis snaps in. So if it's broken off all the way to here, most people make a piece out of styrene plastic or another Stomper or whatever they're going to do, and they glue it back on. But you can always see the crack, you can always see the replacement, especially if it's not the same color. So in this case, we're using the same junker body to fix a good body. So it's kind of a cheat, I guess you would say, rather than having to start from scratch. So I think right there looks pretty straight, so that's what I'm going to go with now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I use this Plastruct plastic weld. This stuff is great. It's not really a glue. It comes with a little handy brush, and this stuff melts the plastic and welds it back together. So I usually put just a dab where I'm going to place it. So let's get both of those spots. Get my plastic weld straightened out, and then I take the tab. Sometimes it almost feels like you need another hand when you're doing this stuff, and I'm going to put a good amount on there so that it doesn't dry as quickly. And now I'm going to go in here, hopefully before it dries, and stick it in place as best I can. Get it. I'm wanting to make sure that I got it straight here. It's hard to tell on each spot where it was cut off, and let that start working in. Now when you get that on there, you're going to want to make sure that this thing is straight, because once this is glued, this thing, it's going to be a part of it again. But I'd like to use this bed cover kind of as an alignment tool is what I would like to do. but right now it's not cooperating like I want it to. So I may have to go to plan B here and just take that out of there. And I'll just align it. I'll just align it by eyeballing it, I guess you would say. And it needs more glue is what it needs. What I normally do is I kind of put I get a little dab on the end of that brush, and then I stick it down in there and let it kind of get down into the crack in between the new tab and the original body. And once it's in place, I go in here and kind of blow on it. It helps the drying a little bit, but it also helps push some of that glue down into the crack, because you want that to really melt in there really good. So it looks fairly straight. So I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and glue this in on both sides. So one on this side, and I'm going to put some on this side, and then just for good measure I'm going to go in here on this other side and try to get some down in there. That's one nice thing about this, having a brush. You can kind of brush it on, and it's a good idea to close this glue up so that it doesn't start to set up, because that stuff does set up sometimes. Alright, now while this is melting in, you want to make sure that it hasn't moved. Sometimes it seems like it'll do something that I would call maybe skating, kind of skates around a little. But so far it looks like the rear tab is in its place it needs to go. Now I normally let this stuff bond for about 24 hours. I don't even remember what it says on the packaging, but it's something like that. So if you could let it set up for a couple hours, I'm sure it would be enough to put it into use if you do light duty at first. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more right here in this location. Now, some people will go in here and they will melt with a soldering iron or some sort of an iron. They'll go in here and melt around on it, but I really believe that this plastic weld stuff is really good, and I don't think it's necessary to heat it up. It seems to melt it in pretty good on its own. Alright, so there you see the bed cover is there and in place, and if it touches the original tab, you could put a little bit of glue in there to hold it, to help brace it up a little bit, give it a little added strength. But that's pretty much the rear tab and how I normally do it. So we're going to let that cure out really good, and then we will see what we can do with the front tab and see if we can replace it the same way. Stay tuned for more.